Alrighty, guys. Good morning. Good afternoon. Bell work is up. Yesterday we talked about St. Patrick and the church structure. So these two questions should be relatively easy to you. All right. So you have notes on those. If you don't have them, make sure you get your bell work done. Again, that'll be part of your bell work check. And I made it. It's finally Friday. It's not Friday yet, but we're close to fall break. Okay. So that is always good news. So we'll have, yesterday we went over the Catholic Church clergy and what the structure is, similar to how we do things here in the school district. All right. So again, vocab, make sure you know, make sure you're looking over that. Again, these are just helpful hints. For example, if you wanted to remember what a serf was, you could put the rake in the ground. Lord, those have power over others. Hold hand up high. So you did that vocab assignment 2 days ago on Play Posit. All right, success criteria. We will demonstrate the different lives between Monastic monks and mendicant friars. Okay, so we can see which group was responsible for different activities during the medieval ages. We will know this when we are able to separate the jobs between monastic and mendicant orders. So, review from yesterday, clergy, church officials. So you have your pope at the very top. Right under him, kind of your assistant principals, also known as cardinals. You have bishops, priests, and then monks and nuns. Today we're going to focus most on that bottom line there. All right. So St. Patrick, priest during the time Rome fell, we talked about yesterday, and how he was able to drive the snakes out of Ireland, and we discussed what we think we know about him and what the real story is behind St. Patrick. All right, so monastic and mendicant orders. All right, after the fall of Rome, many people look to the church for leadership. All right, anytime something bad's happening, just last week, I was listening to one of the ministers at the church across the street from us, and he said that, whenever people get down on their luck, they always look to the church for some help. So this guy who was walking the highway just right outside our school, just walking and went into the church just kind of looking for some help. So 2,000 years later, or 2,000 years before, that's the same case. After the fall of Rome, many people looked to the church for leadership. So monasteries grew in number as more and more people became monks. Again, this provided people stability. Most people in Europe could not read, so books found in monasteries or with the wealthy. So if you became a monk, you had special access to those books you read, and we'll talk more about what jobs they have here in just a minute. All right, so the monastic order, monks in a monastery. All right, mendicant orders, also known as friars, and we'll look at some of the differences. All right. So the monastic order would copy and study books, usually religious texts, Latin, Greek texts from ancient Greece or Rome, and teach local children, work in the hospital, work in fields. Okay, so your working class. Mendicant orders, they lived in the public, often traveling around teaching Christianity. So they stayed away from the monastery. They lived in the public. They were more concerned with how Jesus lived. All right? If you study Jesus in the Bible, he was never really in one spot at one time. He was constantly moving around, sharing his message. So they owned very little property. So the monks, they're living in a monastery. The friars, the mendicant orders, they are the ones traveling around. All right, so monastery, place where monks lived. Again, this is sort of just a review over your vocabulary. So this is a religious community, as we talked about 2 days ago. Monk, someone who lived in a complete devotion to their faith, a member of that religious community. Inside a medieval monastery today. All right, fields, monasteries. Again, this would be very similar to what you would see in a monastery where they would go and worship and pray. All right, medieval monastery. So the church would be the building where the monks participated in divine offices. A scriptorium, room where the monks read, studied, illustrated sacred manuscripts. Hostelry, offered accommodation to pilgrims, travelers. Chapter house, building where the daily meetings of the community took place and presided over the abbot A cloister, a square open courtyard surrounded by covered galleries with open arcades on the inner side, not arcade, which you're thinking about. This came from the Latin word claustrum, which means close. So it was where the monks walked, meditated, and talked to each other. So that's kind of where we get the arcade, kind of a relaxing meditation area for them. Refectory, the dining room where the monks ate together at large tables. They ate in silence while a monk read from text and from the Bible aloud. So very different from the Whitworth Buchanan cafeteria, I would say. All right, so let's say that we are living in a monastery. If this classroom was a monastery, this is how things would be set up. Okay, so for this class period, we were pretending to be inside a monastery. My name would be Abbot Shut. Okay, we will follow a strict schedule at this monastery. As you follow the schedule, each of you will have tasks to complete. You will earn points for your team for each task you complete. So if we were going to do this like a monastery, everyone would have specific jobs. All right, many people in Europe chose to spend their life as a monk and live inside a monastery. So their life was spent in service to God through prayer, worship, and work. Jobs range from working in farms, caring for sick, teaching local children. So again, this is just monks. These are not the friars. All right, so back to the activity. The activity will demonstrate what life was like inside a monastery. Here are your jobs. All right, one would copy books, a Latin paragraph at your table, or maybe something out of the book. One will work in the farms, sharpen pencils. One will work at the hospital, copy down a medical list to heal a sick patient. One will teach local children, read vocab yourself while doing the hand motions. So, to simulate the balance of work and prayer in the monastic life, we would follow a strict schedule. For those jobs, you would have 3 minutes to work. Emulate prayer time, you have 1 minute, so you would have to sit silently for 1 minute and pray. Talking at inappropriate times will result in loss of points for your team. A winning team will have the highest average of points per person. So we're not doing this exact activity today, but this just shows what life was like in a monastery. So you have certain jobs. For this example, we do 3 minutes. Then you have 1 minute for prayer time. So you eventually, same thing every day. Sounds extremely boring probably to most of you, but you also have to realize that back in that time, these people were seen as higher society because they were members of the clergy and they had access to books where most people could not read. All right, so this will be your notes for the day. They are not in red. However, I'm going to put them in the PlayPosit because I know PlayPosit makes the screen a little bit smaller, so you will be able to copy these down. So if you can see them, you can go ahead and copy them down. But if not, just wait for the PlayPosit to show up. But after the fall of Rome, again, we looked over this. Many people looked at the church for leaderships, monks, monastic order, teach local children, work in hospital, work in fields, mainly stayed around the monastery. Mendicant orders, also known as friars, can't stop moving. They live in the public, often travel around teaching about Christianity, try to live like Jesus did, and own very little property. All right, again, at this time, most people could not read or write, so the monks kept or preserved ancient books during the Dark Ages. All right, again, so you should already have those notes. Monastic and mendicant orders. All right, what two religious orders do they represent? All right. All right, so with these will be your answer choices, and I will put this somehow in PlayPosit to where it's asking you questions. So you're just going to look at your notes, make sure you separate what it is to be a monk or living in a monastery and what it means to be living as a friar or mendicant order. So, for example, I will put these somehow in the PlayPosit. And you will tell me, so for example, number 1, fought in many battles. Okay, so that answer is either monastic order, a monk. Number 2 would be mendicant order. 3, both. 4, neither. Okay, so for number 1, fought in many battles, if you look at your notes and see that neither one of them were fighters, you would know that the answer to number 1 would be 4, would be neither. So again, I'll put this somehow in play posit, and it should be a little bit clearer to you. All right, once you were finished with that, you may get out your map if you have not completed that and add those locations. All right, tomorrow we will be doing test corrections. So I will release those scores. You should have already seen, hopefully, your score at the initial point, but tomorrow you'll be able to see which ones you got wrong, which ones you got right, and I'll go over that more at the end of class and first thing tomorrow, and then we were on fall break. Congratulations, folks.